We've all heard about the world's fairs, but did you know that Japan actually had five of its own world's fairs called National Industrial Exhibitions? And these were between 1877 and 1903. The first three were in Tokyo, then others were in Kyoto, and the last in Osaka. And all of this when Japan only opened to the West in 1853. So we're talking just 24 years after they were holding world's fairs. And we're told that Japan was just a feudal society, that they weren't technologically advanced up until 1853 when they could start sharing the technology of the West. So how did this all happen? Let's get into it. Hello and welcome. My name's Campbell. This is Autodidactic. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you're having an awesome day. So the National Industrial Exhibitions were a series of 5 exhibitions held in Japan, staged between 1873 and 1903. Now, looking into this, there's not a lot of images, but I have found a few. And this is the only image that I have found from the first exposition that was held in 1873. And they say that this exhibition ran for 102 days and drew 454,000 visitors. Basically, Japan was inspired to hold its own exhibition after participating in the 1873 Vienna World's Fair. The second National Industrial Exhibition was held in 1881, ran for 122 days, and drew 823,000 visitors. The third was in 1890 and drew over 1 million visitors. And again, 1890, we're talking only 47 years after Japan opened up to the West. And look at all these structures they were building. And so what happened to all these buildings from all of these 5 fairs? Well, it's the same old story. It says the buildings from the first 5 Japanese industrial expositions were primarily temporary structures erected for the duration of each expo. They were typically dismantled or repurposed after the events concluded, allowing the expo sites to return to their previous uses or to be developed for further planning. And it's the same story that we get for every single expo, that we see these amazing, magnificent, huge, massive buildings and all the infrastructure that surrounds them. And we're told it's all just temporary, or it's stucco, plasterboard, wood, all this kind of stuff. But, as you probably know, we still have some of these buildings from World's Fairs that we were told were temporary, and they're still standing today, and they are solid. They're not what they tell us. So what has happened here? Like all of these expos, the sites that they were held on, they say turned back into parks. But I've noticed this in lots of other expos as well around the world, that the old sites, or the sites where the expos were held, become parks. And isn't that interesting? Is that just a way of basically covering up what was there? Because they leave 1 or 2 buildings in most of these parks, and those buildings are definitely not temporary, by the way. And then they just turn them into parks with hills and everything where they can bury stuff. And of course, you're not allowed to go into a park and dig around, right? So it's just an idea. A park's a part of the hiding process, like golf courses are. It's very interesting that all these expositions where they stood, most of them are now parks. And how big were these buildings that were at these exhibitions? Well, at the 5th National Exhibition, we had an industrial building, which was the largest at 4.16 acres, an educational building, which was 0.25 acres, Hall of Agriculture, Forestry and Marine Products, which was 2.15 acres, transportation building 0.62 acres, machinery building 0.8 acres, and large foreign samples building at 1.2 acres. So we're talking about buildings that are acres in size, like the largest being over 4 acres under one roof. And this is the kind of thing that we see at all of the world's fairs all around the world. Same thing, these massively oversized, just huge constructions that have acres underneath the roof, and yet we're told they're temporary and then they're all knocked down. It's a very strange story. Several large exhibitions, such as the Second National Industrial Exhibition of 1881 and the Tokyo Industrial Exhibition of 1907, featured spectacular electric lighting and were purposefully scheduled for the cherry blossom season. 35,000 light bulbs, strung in garlands, adorning a Ferris wheel, immersed in fountains, even backlighting an artificial crescent moon were used at this fair. Approximately 4% of light bulbs available in Japan at the time. So the first 5 expositions were the National Industrial Exhibitions, and they went from 1877 to 1903. But expositions have continued, or at least, World's Fair type things, industrial fairs, and they still continue all over the world, actually, to this day. But they had one in 1907 as well, which still had a lot of the Tartarian looking buildings. And they've got to say about the main buildings that they were Gothic in style in the park proper, were built around a huge fountain on 6 levels, surmounted by Bacchus and bathed in lights of red, blue, and purple. A water chute led down to the lower level on Shinobazu Pond, where special exhibitions told of foreign lands and growing empire. And of course, this was the exposition that was also lit up and covered in electric lights. I mean, 1907 is obviously late, but it says here that the second exhibition in 1881 was also lit up with electric lights. So that was in 1881. They only opened up to the world in 1853. So again, we're talking 24 years, and they seem to have a lot of Tartarian buildings all over the place. So what do you think? Did they build these buildings, or is this a case of them finding buildings, especially after Japan was opened up? So the people who went in found these and took over, made them have these industrial fairs so that basically they could destroy them and turn them into parks. And here's a picture. This one is from 1907, April 8th, 1907. And this is from the from the exposition, Japanese exposition, the Japanese exposition. And this is the only construction photo I could find, if we can call this. It's got a bit of scaffolding around it. But again, as we see in all these photos that we ever find of construction, they're already finished. But we do have dirt roads here, which is interesting. And look at this building. Look at all of these antennas and domes. I mean, that's cool. Massive statue on the top as well. And just not looking Japanese in any way, shape, or form. There's another domed building here. We've got all the archways. We've got the columns. It's the same story everywhere, right? Even this rotunda looking building here is the same design that we see all over the realm in all the parks. So very interesting. And this is another picture from 1907. And this is one of the gateways. And as we can see, we see this kind of building everywhere. We've got the 3 doors, we've got the dome on top, we've got the Antiquitech antennas. And if you look down here, there's a big walkway, a big like boulevard type thing without the trees, towards this, what looks to be a massive statue, maybe standing on a fountain there. I'm not sure, but that again, that setup of the long, pavilions, long walkways going down to certain features, we see that in all the old world cities, all the star cities and Tartarian cities. This one is off a postcard, And again, check out what we've got here. It was probably the same gateway that we just looked at, but 3 doorways, Antiquitech antennas, domes, and it's massive. Look at the size of the people here. This is a fine arts museum, and again, very, what we call Greco-Romano building, massive dome, Antiquitech antennas everywhere, solid. And these are the buildings, again, that they're telling us were temporary, remember, massively oversized. And so this was going on in Japan at the same time that it was going on in the rest of the realm. And I hadn't seen these before, so I thought you guys might find it interesting. Look at this. So what we have here is, this is water, right? Remember the Columbian Exposition, that big photo along the waterfront? This is clearly just one side. But all the expositions as well, built on water, right? Heaps of them have gondolas and boats going around, and obviously massively oversized buildings. I mean, look at this stuff. It's just crazy, and built on the water. So this is Japan, 1907. And here's another shot of that, just a bit further out, of that shoreline we saw before. And you can see there's a massive bridge. Look at this, going across as well. Again, the archways that we see everywhere, perfect precision, built in stone. And you can start to see how big this exposition was. This is clearly just the shoreline, right? So again, was this built as an exposition, do you think? Or is this left over from the previous advanced civilization? What do you think? Leave me a comment below. So that's it, just a short one for this video, as there's not really a lot of information on these expositions. So if you have any more, again, leave it in the comments. Thanks for spending some time with me. Have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you on the next upload. Bye for now.
Remember, in the end, nobody wins unless everybody wins. Come on!